Hey everyone, it's Storytime Alec here with a video on some of my predictions for the Midnight expansion. Now I'm not going to go over everything because there's a lot, trust me. there's a lot. But I just want to go over some of my top predictions, suppose you could call it. Just some things that I hope will happen, like what allied races we're probably going to get, some of the places we may visit during the initial release of Midnight. And to start off, let's talk about that. Where exactly are we going to go in Midnight? Well, the developers have already said, more or less, we're going to Quel'Thalas. But Quel'Thalas is, well, it's not just like one place. It's actually three. But that's just too few zones for us to have. I mean, the standard nowadays is around 4 zones, 4 or 5. Let's see. We got Dornagal, the Ringing Deeps, Hallowfall, and Ajkahet. So those 4. And you would expect to see something similar in Midnight. So, well, I mean, I feel like Quel'Thalas is just 1, 2, 3. So we need a 4th, and I wouldn't even call Quel'Danas up here a zone we're gonna go to. I mean we probably will. I should actually rephrase it and say I don't think it's a proper zone. It's more like a sub-zone. It could be for max level content or a patch zone in the future, but I don't think it can be big enough to qualify as like one of the actual zones. So just 1, 2. Eversong Woods and the Ghostlands. So where else could we go? Well, I have some ideas, and a lot of people have been talking about this. Very popular content creators out there have made tons of videos on this. But yeah, I think we're going to go to these 2 unfinished zones that are on the map here, but we don't actually get to see them in-game. And here is the full list with names, and if you're having trouble seeing this, it is the Isle of Quel'Danas, the Eversong Woods, Zul'Aman, and Northrond. Oh, and the Ghostlands. So I think these are the zones we're probably going to visit. Quel'Danas, as I said, probably going to be an in-game zone, or a patch zone, something like that. Eversong Woods, pretty expected. It's pretty much it basically is a guarantee that we're going to go there because we know Silvermoon is going to be the hub city, and where is Silvermoon located? In the Eversong Woods. So we can just skip that and go. Yeah, we're definitely going to the Eversong Woods. The Ghostlands. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Ghostlands is still the Ghostlands right now, so it's going to be its own zone just because of how visually distinctive it is from the Eversong Woods now. It's really dark, gloomy, because of what happened during the Third War when Arthas invaded Quel'Thalas with his Scourge army. So, yeah, it's probably going to be a zone of its own, and I'd say it's pretty much a guarantee that we're going to go there too. But Zul'Aman and Northrond, these are the interesting ones. Now, a lot of people have speculated this already, that we're going to have some kind of Amani zone right here, and a Northrond, Wildhammer Dwarf forest or something here. The Zul'Aman one, I think people are right. I'm pretty much dead certain we're going to get some kind of Amani zone. Definitely. And well, I will be ecstatic because I am a big Forest Troll fan. I love Forest Trolls. So getting a zone dedicated to the Forest Trolls will be amazing for me. But yeah, I'm also pretty certain it's going to happen because you can't really have a story in Quel'Thalas without involving the Amani in one way or another. But Northrond, that's the one I look at and just go, maybe, we could go there, we could not, we could go somewhere else. It may be like there, that that unnamed, unfinished place. We could go there still. It just may not be Northeron. But I hope it is. You know, it may feel a little weird to people because we already had an expansion with a lot of dwarf themes in it, which is the War Within, but they're not really dwarves, they're earthen. And they don't really do a lot in the expansion. They pretty much show up only in the initial questing experience, and then they have no significant role throughout the rest of the story. And because of that, I don't feel like it's too soon to have more dwarf things, because they, even if they add Northeron and have a Wildhammer group there or something, I don't think it's going to feel weird or like a letdown because we've had Earthen. Because let's face it, Earthen, I don't think that's what really anybody was looking for. I mean, the Earthen, I've heard this said many times, that they are the most unplayed race in the game. So seeing some actual dwarves, the dwarves that some of these Earthen were actually inspired by, the Wildhammer clan, I think it could be good. It could be good. And it could be nice to have kind of an Alliance-specific hub or something in the area, instead of just everybody being cluttered into Silvermoon. Having your own kind of faction hub would be nice. So, you know, I could dig it. But, you know, the real question is, where do we go after these zones here? Because, you know, expansions have more than just the zones they release with. You know, in the War Within, we've gone to the Siren Isle, and we also went to the Arothic Highlands, which of course was already a place, but and now we've gone to Koresh. We went to Undermine. Almost forgot Undermine. So yeah, three different places in the War Within alone out that weren't, you know, initially released. So where would we go in Midnight? You know, it's a big question mark. I think anything north of the Thandal span, which is right here where this line is, anything north of that line is on the table. And it's kind of funny because I feel like Midnight is in this weird place where, you know, we have so much information about where we're going in the next expansion, but because we have so much information, it makes it very hard to do any kind of, I guess you could say, pinpoint speculation, where it's like, oh, you know, we could definitely go to, like, I don't know, the Eastern Plaguelands right here. You know, we could definitely go there. But you could go to any of these places, or none of them. I know a lot of people have been thinking that Azure Mist Isles might also get an update in this expansion, and it'll be like a patch zone, just because Blood Elves, Draenei both are released in TBC. I think it's a 50-50. We could go to Azure Mist and have some stuff with the Draenei. We could also not. You know, flip a coin, basically. It could be either. But yeah, I'm not going to really speculate on too much about patch zones and stuff, because, like I said, I feel it's really hard to see where we would go. They may create entirely different places, like islands off the coast of any of these color-coded zones. You know, something entirely new. Something obscure from the lore, like Zuldair from Warcraft 2. I'm sure we'll find out you know, eventually when Midnight gets here. But you know, anyways, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that is what allied races I think we're going to be getting in the Midnight expansion. And, well, here you have it. I think we're going to get Forest Trolls and High Elves. To me, they just make so much sense now. Both should have been added to the game ages ago, but Blizzard, for whatever reason, didn't add them. And, you know, it's kind of like if they're ever going to add them, they got to add them now in Midnight. It's pretty much a guarantee. They're either going to be in this expansion or never. So, yeah. And there's even some info out there that has alluded to these races being potential allied races in Midnight. There were a couple of YouTube shorts that were pushed out kind of under the radar by the French and German YouTube channels for a while. And I use Google Translate to translate it because, well, I don't speak French or German. And then I ran it also past a friend of mine who speaks French, and they said my translation was a little off, but the gist of it is that the elf and troller having a conversation, or that's what the video is about. It's an elf and a troll having a conversation, and as they're talking, they're going over their history and stuff and blah blah blah, but by the end of it, there's this moment where, like, maybe we should just stop counting our scars and worry more or worry less about the enemies of the past and more about the enemies of right now, which is the void. And they're both kind of like, we're not gonna we're gonna work together, but we're not gonna forget what the other has done. I don't have to like that we need to work together, but we're gonna work together just because this is the moment. Like, Midnight is the moment. It's do or die for everybody. There's no reason to be standing on ancient grudges and things like that when the fate of the entire world hangs in the balance. So, yeah, I think for Forest Trolls, that gives them an easy in. For High Elves, they should have always been part of the Alliance to begin with. They were. So you don't need a lot of explanation for them. But the Trolls, I think you do need explanation for. And I think we're going to see that in Midnight in the Zulaman zone, or whatever it ends up being called, but the Amani zone. It will probably go something like, the Amani are still a little hostile or belligerent. They may or may not be attacking us still, but that will change. Something will cause that to change. We may go to them initially for an alliance of sorts, and they will refuse. They'll tell us to screw right off, and that we can eat dirt and die. But then something happens that makes them think otherwise. Like, Zulaman itself could be attacked. Maybe that could be the first raid of the expansion, or a dungeon of sorts, where the Void attacks, and they've come to resurrect Kithix. Now, for those who don't know what Kithix is a Cathraxi general, which is basically a very powerful minion of the old gods. Kithix was one of these Cathraxi, as I said, and he's a very important one, too, for a couple of reasons. One, he was unleashed by the keeper Loken, who was under the influence of the old god Yogg Saron, and Loken sent Kithix to hunt down the Titan Keeper Tyr. And Tyr wounded him in a battle in what we now know as Tyr's Fall Glades. Kithix, wounded from the battle, fled to the Zandalar Mountains, where he collapsed and fell into a deep slumber. The Loa that dwelled in those mountains hid Kithix's body away, and the trolls that came to settle there, like centuries or so on, however long after, they told them, not to mess with anything there. There's this like weird obsidian stone that is somehow a part of Kithix, I guess, and it's sticking out of the ground, and the Lord like, don't mess with that bad stuff, until a Gurubashi witch doctor by the name of Zando is like, I don't see any problem with messing with it. And then he does a lot of living sacrifices, brings Kithix back, and is like, uh-oh, I screwed up. But then it's too late. Kithix is there. He gathers the Akir that have been dormant and lying beneath the earth since the war with the Titan Forged, and this sparks the Akir Troll War. Now, the ending of that war saw the Amani chase Kithix all the way from Zandalar to the northern eastern kingdoms where we are, or where we find them now. And yeah, they launched like a suicidal attack on Kithix where they threw the entire tribe at him, and they killed Kithix and built Zulaman atop his corpse. So, yeah, you've got a very powerful minion of the old gods slumbering beneath Zulaman. And maybe Zalatath is like, I want him as my servant, and he could be a very powerful instrument. So she sends forces to attack Zulaman. We try to stop them from resurrecting Kithix. We fail. Kithix gets resurrected, and then the Amani are like, well, oh crap. Our ancient enemy, he's back. We gotta kill him. And then we help the Amani kill Kithix, and maybe after that happens, like, okay, maybe you're not so bad, so, and maybe you're right. Maybe the Void is really bad stuff, so we'll help you fight them. Something like that. I may be kind of underselling it, but it's like, if they do something like that where they resurrect Kithix and bring him back and we help the Amani defeat him, that will just be... Midnight will automatically be a win for me. I would just love that as a Forest Troll fan. But yeah. I think that's probably how the Amani would end up joining the Horde. And the High Elves, you don't need as... Like I said, you don't need as much explanation. They've already more or less been part of the Alliance since before Classic. So, say, hey, now you're actually part of the Alliance. Congratulations. You're actually deciding to do something for the faction rather than just sitting there taking up space. Either way, there's not really any other predictions I can think of that I would like to go over. Like I said, I have a lot, and if I tried to get through them all, I would be droning on for days. So I think I'll just leave things here. But before I go, there is something I want to say. Tomorrow I will be most likely releasing another video. It's going to be on my reaction and breakdown of the Manaforge Omega in cinematic, which I'm hoping will tease Midnight a little, kind of like how the Undermine finale teased Ghosts of Koresh. But aside from that, I'll probably also be live streaming tomorrow on Twitch. Not sure what time, probably around 7, 8 a.m. PDT. But I'll be live streaming some in-game stuff. It's just going to be like me finishing the last of the Ghost of Koresh story. Probably world quests and stuff like that. I probably won't be doing that much tomorrow, at least PvE wise. I'm probably going to do a lot of PvP because the season will be beginning and I need to get geared up so I can start doing rated. But yeah, you can just catch me over at Twitch if you're interested in any of that. And stay tuned for my video tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing the finale. I really hope it is on the same level of quality, if not better, than all the cinematics we've had of Ghost of Koresh so far, because they have all been fantastic. And like I have loved this patch. Probably the best patch WoW has made since anything in Legion, which is one of the best expansions in my opinion. But But anyway, that's enough ranting for me, I think. I will see you all later, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.